funny friends, my funny friends, my funky friends now. My funny friends, my funny friends, my funky friends now.
Starring Drew Harrison and Will Abeles.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another rendition of My Funny Friends.
Oh, rendition. I like that.
I know, I'm feeling good today.
You don't know what that word means exactly, do you?
I couldn't give you
No,
a
it
definite
means-
definition.
It's like
Oh, this is
another
gonna-
version.
I do feel like every time Blaire's
I
around,
feel like
there's going to
it's
be a pop
close,
quiz.
and somebody else would have let it go.
You know, I start to show off
I-
one time every 6 episodes, and I get immediately heckled by our guest. I didn't even get through it. No, I don't know what rendition means, but I know it's a word that I was supposed to use in that situation. I thought it was fine.
And
I
then
Let
enjoyed
me
it.
introduce the
enjoyed it.
show. It's insanity. I tried to quit before we started recording, and now we might get half an hour in before I finally just call it quits and throw in the towel.
No, you
It'll
love
make
us.
for a good show.
You love us.
It would be. Yeah, Blaire finally breaks Will after 2 years of trying. So
The thing is,
We-
Will, I'm not even trying.
I know
If,
that's
if
the
me
scary
and
part.
if me and Milner and me and Weber didn't break you, I think you'll be fine.
I think
That's not even. We're talking big leagues, and you're talking single A, dude. I mean, come on. All right.
Of mental ninjas.
Welcome back to another rendition of My Funny Friends. I'm one of 2 of your hosts, Will Abeles. I feel like I was very quiet on a couple episodes because Drew does it better than I do. But I'm here with my co-host, who's not holding a banana, he's holding a stress ball.
It's a
Drew
baseball
Harrison.
stress
Hi,
ball.
Drew.
Hey, buddy. You okay?
Hi.
Do you need the stress ball? I'm going to send you one of these.
You don't even.
You know how I'm
I-
all calm, cool, and collected during the episodes? It's the stress, man.
I need a.
Gotta get it out.
I got a fidget spinner. I can use this fidget spinner,
There you go. That's what you.
but it's a
wanna do.
fidget spinner that also opens beer bottles. So
this is a tight
Double stress.
opening.
This is
Yeah.
if you were to tell me anyone had a fidget spinner bottle opener, I'd be like Will Abeles does.
to be me. Well, this week we have a wonderful guest with us, someone who I got to become friends with during a time when most people weren't making friends.
That's
The
right.
quarantine, the great 2020 quarantine.
The
She's also
2020.
my mom's favorite comic,
Oh,
and
I mean,
they've become
no
pals.
shit, and sent me a book. Oh my God!
y'all are male buddies
On
now.
this podcast about who I met, who your mom is going to be so excited about. Go on.
On the podcast, this week's guest, I'm the host. This week's guest, Blaire Postman.
Maybe this wasn't the week to start you off up top. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right.
Because it's like taking a test. Can you imagine like taking a driving test and Blaire's like your instructor? Could you imagine that?
And
Listen,
very
you jackass!
supportive.
It's called K-turn.
No, I'm like, you can do it. You can do it, which is even more disconcerting. Like very aggressive support is also not helpful.
I love it. Aggressive supporter Blaire
Aggressive-
posted.
You can do it.
Oh no.
You're not just disappointing me, you're disappointing Americans everywhere.
No, it's aggressive support.
Just
You have to do this.
yeah, you can. It's not you can do this. You have to do this.
You have to do this.
That's a whole level of
How are
pressure right
you?
there. Good.
I
It's so
do.
good to see you. You doing
I'm
okay?
already out. I'm out.
See, I was on Blaire's podcast for years. This is just how we operate, man. This is just how
Yeah.
we do things.
Okay. Well, thanks
Did
for
you
that
not
heads
get
up.
did you not get the agenda we sent over to you?
No,
everything
because
was
That is
remember,
an
remember,
inside joke because some of us tried to be prepared for our podcast and send over outlines for the show. And then
hey, look,
We valued them greatly. Okay. We did we stuck to the bullet points. We didn't me and Gary and Bishop never varied from the plan. We were
oh, okay, you're talking about your podcast. I was like, if there was an
Step
outline
by
sent,
step.
I did not see the outline.
no, I did.
And I was like,
I did. I had light
it was
outline.
on My Fantasy Wife where
oh, that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
we
Yeah,
we had
Sorry.
so much fun over the
But
years.
that's not the podcast that we're talking about. Today we're
No.
talking about my funny friends
Yay, there you
with
go.
our lovely guest, Blaire Postman.
poor Will is so battered. He's
You
just
guys
going to repeat
edit
the
this at
intro.
all?
Oh
There's
no,
no editing,
this is
right?
straight
No.
to the
that
internet.
would take
right
way
now.
too much work. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
this is live.
Yeah.
If anyone's
We'll do it
still
live.
listening, the guest is Blaire Postman. If anyone's got through that first,
Oh, and this is actually where I stop talking in every episode because then Drew just takes over because everyone tends to like him more. He's better at
This
banter,
is
and
now-
I'm just
okay,
like,
this is
I
what this
also
is
went to
about.
Atlanta once.
why do you think that everyone likes Drew more?
Because he's kinder.
No. I mean, what evidence do you have?
Oh, Drew, I don't know. Because I make everything about me, and then when I can't make it about me, I just get quiet.
There it is.
Very
That's
Yeah.
what we were
interesting.
waiting for.
Cool. So this is my funny friends now turned Will goes to therapy.
It's about.
And how does that
time.
make you feel?
Because
Not
we can
great.
do this the whole podcast. I would be
Mhm.
great.
Well, everyone just come off and be like, I don't know what just happened, but hey, I want to get on. I want to get on Bev Abeles' book
I met
club.
your parents. It's not their fault.
I can't
well,
wait. We have so many layers to this story.
It's too many.
Both of us knowing you, Blaire, and crossing paths with you at very different
Yes,
times.
I know. We did not
So-
meet. It's not that I met you guys at the same time together.
Right.
Completely different.
Because normally a guest on our show is either like more my friend or more Will's friend. Like this time, I feel like it's
Apparently,
50-50.
usually more your friend, Joe.
I just went.
No,
out of it.
they'll be my friend, but then they'll just be like, why do I hang out with Will?
Yeah, like,
Like, you know what?
bring Drew with you
What
next time you
choices
come.
am I
hang out.
making? Sorry, no, right. But
So-
usually one of you knows the person or the other knows the person. But
Yes.
and I met not through either one of you through each other. It's just happenstance.
Right.
Yeah.
So we always
Oh.
like to ask the beginning, the origin.
Okay.
If you were to say, this is where my comedy journey started, what year and where was that at?
My comedy or performing of any kind journey started with improv comedy in Washington, D.C., or at least the metro area. And I think it was after law school. I want to say it was 96, maybe 1997.
Okay.
There have been gaps along.
What was the DC improv scene like in the later 90s?
Well, there wasn't a big one. There wasn't much of a stand-up scene either at all. And I was, I guess, annoying my roommates. And I had been looking for something to do, like a hobby. And there was not a robust internet. You couldn't just go search things and they would know where they were and when they were happening. And so a friend of mine, one of my roommates, my college friend, Lisa, had gone to Philly and seen Comedy Sports, which is a
I'm
short
intrigued.
form improv, allegedly competitive teams of improv, a little like Whose Line Is It Anyway, but with like outfits and a lot of gags. and
Ooh, costume changes?
but
Okay.
still,
all right.
well, more like everyone's on a softball team, kind of.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Red team versus blue team, and I had never, sort of knew what improv was, but I never had taken a class or done anything, and so I was like, oh, I can do this. But there's much more to improv than just being quick on your feet. You have to listen to other people, and you don't get to do just whatever you want.
You have to listen.
So I did Comedy Sports then. I moved to New York for a job and came back, and for a while decided, because I was a booking agent of a kind, that I couldn't do improv. Like, it was unethical. I don't know. Law school had a very bad effect on me. Conflict of interest is because I was booking other people. I'm like, nobody cares anymore. And then so I went back to Comedy Sports, and then I went to Washington Improv Theater, which did like long form and other stuff. Although I was not that thing about sharing and stuff. I think that came into play in my audition for Washington Improv Theater, and they put me again in the short form group. It was not a secret that we were considered the worst.
They
And
did
I
not try to hide
barely
it.
got in. barely got
Oh,
in
that's just mean.
because people just couldn't handle the truth I was bringing. No, I barely got in. And as I know now, I'm very ADHD. And so you do have to sort of pay attention a little bit to other people, but also you can't get too obsessed with something. That's just your own thing, which is the other side of ADHD. So those things would happen. But I always say that I came from a very successful group of people in a very unsuccessful improv troupe. So like my friend Andrew is now, he's had a lot of different kinds of climate reporting jobs. He was a reporter for the Washington Post, and now he's the climate reporter for Axios. Another friend of mine who writes for the Washington Post. Another friend is like the senior vice president of all streaming everything at like Disney Plus. And I'm like, oh
my God.
One of my friends moved out to LA, Candy, and is an actress and has been in national, like she's not famous, but she's been in national commercials. She only just started stand-up in quarantine. And
I wasn't expecting Candy to go into commercials when you said my friend Candy went out to LA.
Hey, she didn't let that name handicap her.
No, she Candy Rodriguez. You know what?
Oh, see, didn't wait for the last name, did you?
Yeah, I didn't wait for the last
and
name.
Then, and then a young kid. One of my other friends is the head of stuff, all news things online for PBS.
All the news.
Another young kid, Rory Scovel, was also in that, and I was on.
He's doing all right.
Person delegation at the next year's auditions, allowed to draft people for our team, and I drafted Rory because
it's probably a good call. You know,
so there is no Rory Scovel.
Good eye for talent.
Well, you heard it here first. No Rory Scovel without Blaire Postman. That's really cool. I was actually wondering if you were going to say Rory in that group of people, because I know he started from DC, and a lot of people don't know that.
So many people started from
I don't know why I thought like South Carolina.
An exhaustive list of people who were around. He did improv before he was doing stand-up.
Right. And you see that in his stand-up. Like, you know, I mean, that's,
well, he's got a bunch. He's got a whole special
Yeah.
about improvising.
I think Rory and I we're friends, but we're very different people. Thank God. And so I always say that a lot of my stuff is, a lot of the stuff that winds up staying in my bit are things that are, it's not that I improvise the entire act, but when I start working on material, I let it be really loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
And play with it, and I'm looking to see what's funny, and I will say things that pop into my head, because sometimes the catalyst of, you know, being in the incubator of that moment of on stage at a mic makes that perfect word come to mind, you know.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, like, if it was the opposite of saying rendition instead of edition, like if you said it the
I
right,
knew you were gonna go there. I knew.
and then like, and so if you like, it sometimes that is actually galvanized. So I try to, especially in the beginning of a bit, I try to let myself, you know, I'm not like getting paid real money or something, but it's just mic, right? Just playing. And I always saw mics as just playing. I'm not that worried about mic or bombing at a mic.
Be. Yeah.
Right.
God
So
forbid.
I'm a big proponent of improv influencing stand-up. But there's things about stand-up that I like more. But people who were around stand-up when after Rory started were Aparna Nancherla, Seton Smith,
interesting.
Ryan Connor, Aaron Jackson. Oh gosh, I'm gonna forget some people. That'll give you an idea. Those are the people.
I mean, that's a squad, you know.
Going through the no mics because there was like, yeah. It was pretty. And I wasn't a stand-up then, but I was producing and managing, and I would go to the shows and that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying like I have those people on speed dial now, but there's just
sure.
Still, you know, they know who Blaire Postman is.
I don't know if they remember me or not. I mean, Rory's my friend, and you know, that's one thing, but I don't like, and I have seen Aparna at a festival. I opened for her, and like, you know, I'll like run into Ryan Connor,
come to
like,
Wilmington once a year.
Yeah, he knows, but yeah, I'm not saying all those people like remember me and think I'm great. I was there. Whether or not they remember me, I don't know.
So okay, so you didn't. So if you didn't start, all right. So you're doing improv in DC, and are you originally? You're not originally from DC though, right?
No, I'm from New Jersey.
She's a Jersey girl.
Yes, I grew up just north of the George Washington Bridge in New Jersey.
Okay, cool. And was there anything like prior to annoying your roommates before you were like when you were younger that you were like, oh, I want to try improv.
On my entire life, and I was massively discouraged. In fact, more than discouraged. In fact, pretty much gaslighted by my parents that I was not to try it, and if I ever tried to be a performer, everything disaster.
Like of any kind, like no
Of any
performance, nothing.
Correct.
So no plays, no nothing.
And I'm not joking about that. That's real.
Yeah, no, I got you.
Yeah.
I can see it
So
in the
that's
face.
why. That's how you wind up starting stand up at 43. So I was really rosy in second grade, and I liked to sing, but it seemed I got the message pretty clearly that it was always very frivolous and that I shouldn't want to do any of these things, or even when I started doing improv, that I shouldn't like dabble as a hobby.
Make sure you got that law career going.
Yeah, you're not really funny, and it's really a thing you can be successful at, and so do every other job you can do circling around entertainment and comedy other than being a performer, and blow up your entire life until you actually start doing the thing you're supposed to do. That's what I did for 20 years.
Okay.
So is that why you leaned towards the booking and because didn't you did a festival? in
I went
DC?
to law school and I said I wanted to be a media and entertainment lawyer. I only did that 2 or 3 years, and I said it'd be more fun to be an agent, and I started in the William Morris Agency talent agent training program, where they started in the mailroom out of the New York office. I did that. I moved up to assistant. Then I got a job back in DC because my future first ex-husband and I are getting engaged, and his job was still in DC. And I got a job at a speakers bureau. So it was like, it was booking like famous people, but for like speeches,
Speaking roles.
appearances, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I blew that up, and I wanted to work more with comedians and do comedy. And I'd started a comedy festival, got a job working. I went out on my own. I got a job. I got Second City as a client for booking, like them book their corporate and both performances, but also like trainings and stuff using improv. And then eventually I went in-house, still at this comedy festival. When I went in-house for them was a year or so, and Chicago was super fun. But when it sleeted like in May, that first year, I knew it wasn't going to be all right for me.
Yeah.
And, my now husband, this one lasted much longer.
Carrie.
I wanted to work more with comedians, and I moved back to DC, but was moving. I would go up to New York Monday through Thursday, work for this management company, and back down. Now, overlapping this, when I was on my own, and then with Second City, and then with this management company, I had a comedy festival I started called DC Comedy Fest. It was 4 years. Up to the 4th year, it was the economic turndown, the housing crisis. In April 2008, none of the sponsors came in, and I was a moron. I mean, I don't want to just blame the economy. Like
But it was god awful, dude.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I lost a business to
sponsors and all that stuff, but I was an effing moron. I was a fucking moron. And like, oh, I'm gonna get all these great people and it's just gonna work out. And no, it's not how it works. And I couldn't admit that it was probably not going to work out and cut everything, because I felt like failure. I'm telling you this with years of like Al-Anon and everything. Like it's like in retrospect, I realize now that I should have known, but other bad things were happening and I couldn't handle that failure, my theory. And I thought if I just worked real hard and got great people, it was going to work out.
Yeah,
right.
I went bankrupt. I had quit my other job, the management side. So while I'm doing this producing those 4 years, I met a lot of people. There were a lot of people I booked very long time ago, not just those people from DC, but like, so I was at a show in New York last weekend, and Hari Kondabolu was after me, and he was like, Blaire, I haven't seen, it's been a long time. How you doing? I'm like, things are great, but moving on. I'm like, I don't know that he remembers me.
Yeah.
And again, I have a weird name. So, I mean, like, I haven't, like, we don't hang out. I don't have his phone number. You know what I mean? Like,
That's cool that you recognize him.
I'm not even name dropping him. And like, there's, but that's the kind of person who I had in that festival. We had,
Right. Like, yeah.
I can't even, I mean, Michelle Buteau and like all the guys from Chicago. I met a lot of the guys from Chicago, what I call them, but before they left Chicago, when I was in Chicago working for Second City, and I had this festival. So we have like Kamal Nanjiani and Jared Logan and Kyle Kinane and TJ Miller and Nick Vatterott, and then all the women who were there. Did Jacqueline Novak come out of there? No, she was in the festival. All those guys were Hannibal Burris, and all those guys were in the festival.
And they're all coming to DC to do this festival.
Mm-hmm. It was
That's
like
amazing.
the only ones around.
Yeah.
And I didn't perform again because I felt it was a conflict of interest, and how wrong it would be to try to just promote yourself by making a whole festival.
Terrible.
As like, who am I? I mean, I have a poster. You can't really see it. I have a poster of it that I used to tell anyone about this. It's actually took me years and years to even talk
okay
about
with it.
Because it felt like such a failure, and I figured everyone hated me. And then when I'm doing,
I love that feeling in
I knew
producing.
like Sean Patton, and like I met a lot of people. Do they know me now? Some of them, like,
Seems like it.
some of them, like, can I tell you a story that I don't think I've ever told anyone except my husband? It's not like
no, God, no, we can't have an
actually-
exclusive on the podcast.
it's not because it doesn't matter. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's meaningless and it doesn't matter, except it was sort of fun. And, you know, it's not a credit, you know? So I'm at, what was the Boise Festival? 208 Fest.
208.
208 Fest. So I'm in 208 Fest. It must be Labor Day weekend, like 2018 or 19. I'm at 208 Fest doing a show. When we were in Wilmington, Drew, I once saw Kyle Kinane dropped in one night on a Thursday, and I said, hi, Kyle. And he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I live here now. And then we just left, and I don't like to bother these people because for a long time that because I failed, all of them must have very bad opinions of me, and I'm a terrible person. And I never want to bother them because I'm just trying to do stand-up and me good stand-up, and have the big benefit of having seen all of that before is only that I had a lot of more realistic expectations of how
can happen
and how disappointing it was, and how hard you had to work, and how funny people didn't always get what they wanted when they wanted it, you know, credit wise, show wise, surprise, and how long a lot of these people, when I would just see them, we weren't like in touch necessarily, but I would see, look at Michelle Buteau is an excellent example.
Mm-hmm.
She's really blown up in the last, let's say 3 years or so. I remember when we were pretty friendly, we went out a few times, but industry people being like, no, you don't look this way. And like, imagine hearing that forever, for 20 fucking years, and she never quit, and now look at her, and good for her, fuck you, everybody. And I'm not names of some of these assholes, but they were assholes. And but imagine being the resilience she had to have to keep going. And
after all those no's.
So I take that as the big benefit of that life. I've never called these people. I've never had Rory put me on a show or something. I would be embarrassed. To me, that would be embarrassing. If you haven't seen me, I'm never going to ask you to put me like, or I'm going to send you a link or to a video or something. But like, so that's why I'm prefacing this massively, because like, I'm embarrassed to even kind of tell you this story, but it was a fun confluence. I'm at the 208 Fest. I'm doing a set. It's going quite well. Kyle Kinane is one of the headliners. He's at a different venue. I did my set. It went really well, really well. I walk off stage and there's some comics who did really well. And who walks in? It's Kyle Kinane. And he said, holy shit, I walk in here, I see your name. I haven't talked to him. I talked to him that one time in Wilmington for 10 seconds, 8 years before.
Yeah.
Here, I see your name, and there's Blaire Postman. I can't believe, is that the same Blaire Postman? It has to be, and you're fucking crushing it. You killed. Like, that was very satisfying.
Yes.
Sure.
Again, I then
Had
went
to
off
be.
into obscurity, but as evidenced by our us all being where we live and what we're doing now.
But I mean, as someone who would die properly tomorrow if Kyle Kinane and my name and crushing it came out of his mouth.
Right. It was
Yeah, so-
like he's fucking killing it. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Nice. So-
But it was good in part because it's like when this thing that happened last weekend, he didn't know I was a comic. I was never a comic back then.
Right.
And I also knew enough from watching that you weren't going to get any credibility by being a producer. You weren't going to get any state. You
No
might
one
be
knows who's producing. them.
whatever, but that doesn't give you material, and it doesn't give you credibility, and it doesn't give you chops, and it doesn't do any of that stuff. So I always just assumed that I was going to like have to work 20 times harder than anyone else for anyone who had ever known me in a past life to even believe I was capable of being a stand-up.
Oh,
And-
that's interesting.
A lot. So
Yeah.
I just never brought them into, I like none of those people, even people who used to be my clients, I mean, like, don't know that I do, like, I'm not,
Right.
I don't think they have any idea that I'm a
Yeah, I
client.
love seeing people that I grew up with being like, wait, you do what? So like just that you had that producer hat on, you were the behind the scenes. Like I can relate.
Mhm.
I can relate to that.
It's a very different role in comedy.
And I
for
was a
sure.
booker and an agent. I booked people. I mean, the manager I worked for had at the time like clients like Amy Schumer and John Mulaney and like, other people like Judy Gold who's been around.
Some
And
real up and comers.
right.
right,
But back then, this is a while ago. Remember, I'm 150 years old.
right.
That you forget. And again, I don't think these people remember me, but it was interesting from seeing how they work and seeing what it took and seeing how and knowing that you can get this great thing back then, like a Live at Gotham. You can get a Live at Gotham, you can get a Just for Laughs. And it feels like it doesn't change anything. It does, but it's not.
The game
That-
changer, everybody.
It doesn't.
Yeah, and that's been something that's come up a couple times in this podcast. Is like you always think it's going to be this one thing, and something major like that, you're like, well, this has to be the thing.
It's
And then
usually
sometimes
a chain of
it's-
events too.
Right. Yeah, it can lead to it. And like, I mean, and I know some people with JFL specifically, like they getting that is such an accolade, right? But I've known guys that have bombed on it, and that became their identity for so long.
I have known. I was gonna say I know one person. I'm not gonna name names.
Yeah.
It's not scandalous. It's just like they're not my stories to tell.
Right.
I knew one
right.
person who I knew like in that time who got it. And I don't think they bombed, but they went to LA and then it just didn't matter.
Right.
I knew another person who I knew well at the time, and I was up there as industry. So I was there and I saw it.
Oh, that's
And-
interesting.
It bombed. And I could not give you a mathematical reason as to why. Because
Right.
this was a funny person who I had even seen do some of these bits. Very funny. I
Just fell
remember-
flat that day.
remember sitting in the lobby with this person and of the hotel where then people mingled and we were alone. And you have to,
Right.
like, I knew another person who went that year who I really like and who did well. And, you couldn't, like, everyone's swarming all over them. And that is somebody who I then bailed out of airport jail in Montreal to drive them back to New York when they accidentally had like a knife in their bag. Story for
I
another
was going
time.
through the Rolodex. I was like,
I was
Coke,
getting
weed,
so
what the hell?
worried. I always get
No,
so worried
no.
I'm gonna be in airport jail.
And you think that you don't have a record, but then you remember that in senior in high school, you were 18 when you hit that mailbox with a baseball bat. And who's
Comes right back.
you? Me. Did that person then take me on as their manager? No. Were they correct to not do that? Yes, they were. I didn't really want to be. I have a good eye for talent, actually, and I'm very loudly supportive. See, everything comes full circle, Will.
Yes.
Very loudly supportive, but it's not really what I wanted to do, and it was always going to turn out badly for me.
Would you
And
mind
also
going back?
and also my husband was an unrecovered alcoholic at the time. Did I mention that? And we were broke.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, that adds into it. Well,
Yeah.
what I was going to ask is, I don't know if I've ever met anyone that was on the industry side sitting at JFL. What was that like for you?
I was so low down. I mean, I couldn't.
Still got to be pretty cool. You got a badge with the word industry on it, right?
Yes,
That's
but
pretty cool.
don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, and also, here's part of the problem. I thought a lot. Now, mind you, I came up through the William Morris mailroom and all that. I had the credentials. First of all, I think I underestimated like who would have taken me on and to do what. Secondly, I always liked the talent much more than I liked the
rest of the industry.
People. That's not entirely
Yeah.
true, but I was never, for example, going to procure and do blow with the talent. That was just, I was
That's
not
when you hire me.
right. Well, I was not that person. That wasn't going to happen. And so, that cut off, some avenues of networking for me. But I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say, but it was never going to, the fact that I was there as industry meant I got to see some things, but I wasn't like a wheeler or dealer. I wasn't important enough. The guy I worked for wasn't important enough. It wasn't like that.
I got you. Well, let's get our timelines to even up here. So you did
Some of my
all this.
things happen to overlap each other.
No,
so.
I'm just saying, let's get us to what got you to Wilmington. What brought you to
so I went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a terrible economy. No one hired me to do anything. And so I was legal temping. I reactivated my law license, pretty desperate, but they paid pretty well back then, like $35 an hour plus overtime, because you had to have a law license to do this doc review. And my husband was, his mother had died, all these bad things had happened. He was a terrible alcoholic, or a great alcoholic, I guess.
He was pretty good at it.
Very good at it. And we lost all this stuff, and he lost his business, and all these things happened. But we weren't really thinking like, well, that he's really an alcoholic then, despite everything. And
Yeah, he's just having a bad day.
I need a new, what's that?
He's just having a bad day. Just having a bad 2 months.
He's having a bad day for,
for 6 years.
742 days in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was looking, and he would tell you as much. And I was looking, just in case anyone's listening to this, I have jokes about my husband's alcoholic. I'm not outing his anonymity.
He's a good sport about it.
He's probably like a little too enamored of that one joke now. But
It's too good of a sport.
So I left managing because my life's falling apart, and I'm driving back and forth, but I'm broken. Like my clients, like Rory and Kamal, whatever, they've got like they're temping in a day, and I'm supposed to make 10% or whatever, 20% of what they make, except I can't make 20% of their temp job stuff. So I don't know. I thought I was gonna I thought if I just do this, it'll just all work out. If I just close my eyes, it'll all work out in the end. I was really really stupid. Not stupid. I was
Blindly optimistic.
magical thinking is maybe right.
You were
It's
aggressively supporting yourself.
something like that, without wanting to admit realities. And I'm like, I just need a new career. My godmother had been in television ad sales in New York for decades. I my parents had a second home, summer home in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we had gone for years and years and years, and still have, and a job opening and now I couldn't get the job in DC or New York that would really pay and teach you the business. I was too inexperienced. I had no background. No one was going to hire me for that. But in Wilmington, North Carolina, at market 130, whatever, if you had a sales background, which basically I convinced them that booking stuff was, and if you seemed smart enough to teach yourself things, you could. And so I went there and I got this sales, and then we're like, you know what, this is great. We're going to live in my parents' beach house when they're not there. We're not going to have any rent. I'm going to do this job. The cost of living's less. And we're just going to live a life where we sit. We're just, that's who we are now. And I'm going to leave.
This is what we do now.
This is what we do now.
And what year was this? If you
We met some fun people. I started that job in early 2010.
And based on my very limited experience in Wilmington, what a better place. Like there couldn't be a better place than Wilmington to do that.
Wilmington is like Las Vegas or LA. People go there to reinvent themselves. Except in Wilmington, there tends to be a lot of people who've just left a rehab situation.
Yeah, see, I'm just recovering from 3 days in Wilmington, 2 days in Wilmington, not even 3,
Right.
2 this time, and I'm just now recovering from it.
When you know you don't even leave
or
Dead Crow,
they were very rich,
and
but
you
they
need to go home.
some things and yada yada yada. Now they live in Wilmington.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will didn't even make the bar trip night 2 with us.
No,
didn't.
I've never done that. I don't do
No,
that.
it was. I looked at Drew. You know, Drew finishes his. You know, the night of the album recording, he finishes everything, and I look at Drew and I was like, I have to go home, and it's like 11 o'clock. I was like, Wilmington has done it again, but this time I'm gonna be smart about it. I'm gonna put myself in a bed. I'm gonna hang out with Lou's dog, and I'm gonna, you know
Bones.
wake up.
You met Bones.
Yeah.
Lou and Katie's dog Bones.
I don't think so. I think I left before there was Bones.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Oh,
I mean, I've
cuddle.
seen Lou and Katie,
Bones is
but
great.
not the dog was not.
That's
with
fair. That's fair. All right. So you're
And
in
so
Wilmington.
I
Reinvent
just-
yourself.
I went down there, and then suffice it to say that I call it when the shit went down. Like when I'm trying to do a timeline thing with my husband, and I'm like, it was like 3 months after the shit went down. Like we don't go into like all the shit went down. Stuff went. Gary blew up. Had another business. He was totally drinking like crazy, drinking the profits. Will suffice it to say that there were other issues, family related, that were very complicated. Other stuff happened, just like, and everything was so bad. Everything got so bad. And there were people in my family who were so mad at me or Gary or both, where I was such a prior, everything had gone, my life felt very burned down. I had left that job for another job, and I had to come back to that job, and I had to start all over for so much less money because I had lost clients because they went to someone else when I left. Like just bad. That I finally decided to do stand up.
Exactly. I knew.
There's nothing left to lose.
Nothing.
I was waiting
And
for
when
it.
when I approach trying new material, stand up, I promise you that with a few exceptions, I generally try to approach it with having nothing left to lose, because it's like the movie Meatballs and Bill Murray. It just doesn't matter, because all the really good looking chicks are still going to go out with the guys from North Fork or the other camp because they've got all the money, right? Or whatever. It just doesn't.
Nothing means nothing.
Wow.
Now,
Thank you, Drew.
things mean things to me, but there are shows where I'd like to really do well, and for people to tell me I'm good, or all the psychological broken things that have us get up there and do the shit. But the benefit, not that you asked, of starting stand-up at 43 years old, not does not hurt having an improv background and a little bit of sketch, is that you have perspective.
Mhm.
And I'm also not, I want everyone to like me. Like, I want Drew to like me, but like, I'm not
Mission accomplished.
Drew to be my social interactions exclusively. Like the way you are if you start at like 21 years old, that is your whole peer group. It's probably, very unfortunately, your dating group. You know, it's
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I didn't have any of that. And I didn't, like, you got to care, but not that much. And I cared, and I did want people to like me, but also I didn't wait this long to screw down just to like try to make.
I didn't come here for friends.
That way to tour, and also I didn't care about. I would call anyone. I would find people once I got not asking to like a headline at the Improv or something like, but for little local shows, I started going outside of Wilmington because I knew right away it was never going to be enough stage time, you know, in that town. I was touring in in a year or so by myself. And I'll tell you, I'd asked to jump on a couple tours with some of these guys, not Drew, guys who are my friends now, and they wouldn't take me.
Drew
So
would've took-
I went by myself, and it worked out.
About to say, you were always on. Whenever I had time for you at Lucky Joe's, you were always there.
I was always on, but I mean, and I'm talking even earlier than Lucky Joe's, but I just would try to go to Raleigh as much, and then Charlotte, and then wherever, and then South Carolina, and I just wherever, just do as much.
We are
network.
gonna have you on at one point when we can figure out how to have everyone on from that car ride from hell to South Carolina. We've got to do an entire
I'll tell you
episode.
what, I was just
on
talking
that
to Cordero Wilson
trip.
about it this weekend, and
Yeah, so we're gonna have a special edition
It's
episode
awesome.
just for
I have
that.
great pictures though.
Oh, fantastic!
And so I just did that, and I kept doing that, and then at some point things bounced back. In case anyone's wondering, my husband stopped drinking. He's been sober for 9 years.
Gary,
The gigs started getting better. I started to get featured. Erin Foley was one of the people who came through.
oh, you and Aaron just
And
linked up, just fit
She's
perfectly.
great,
with each
and it's not like she takes me everywhere or anything, but she took me like to Asheville to open for her once or twice, and a couple of things like that. And I started submitting festivals, and then I did that Super Bowl halftime show bit, and I got a good.
Now, did that come straight from the podcast,
I mean,
or
not
did you
in
start that as a
perfect
bit
form,
before?
but that's the idea came from it, right?
Okay,
Because
yeah.
don't so it started with no flip chart. It started with me and just a list and like explaining it and like showing, but being ADHD, I'm like, it's too easy for me to go. Like, there's a lot here and
Well,
it builds on itself. It never hurts to have me have something to.
Right. I
on
mean, even
track.
before you had
you-
the
keep you
flip
back.
chart, you still sold
Yeah.
it. You know what I mean? Like it was one of
Yeah.
your more performance based
Yes, thank
bits.
you.
You know what I mean? So
And then I had a flip chart, and that got me into some festivals of note. And then I got into some other festivals, but once I got a really good tape of that and it was tight enough, that's what got me into things like San Francisco Sketch Fest or whatever. And
I feel like it was San Francisco Sketch Fest, and I want to say Asheville was the first time you came onto my radar because you
about to
do
say,
a
how
very
did y'all cross? When does y'all's time?
This was years. Like we didn't even meet each other, but just Blaire's name is so specific that I do remember seeing. All right, so I got rejected by this, and I got rejected by that. Who got in? And I do remember starting to see your name circulate around that time. Yeah. So
boy.
yeah. So it was years later,
I
like in
could
DC,
tease
that
you
I
and
finally.
say that brings me joy, but
you
no,
do
I
know
Yeah.
that Will had to turn that into.
I well,
No, but
I
I'm
think
being
it's,
I'm
I
being sincere.
assume-
Like I remember it was Asheville and San Francisco that I started seeing your name like more
and
regularly.
nobody
as
knew
road
who
stuff.
I was.
Was
So
this
I would go
2018 that you had your? You had
2017, 18,
okay. I was about to say you
19.
had an epic run of the festivals there.
I went 2018, 2019, because like I was in 10th class in 2019. At the end, that was not too long before COVID started. And I would feel like Asheville was maybe 2019 also.
Okay.
And
God, it seems like a lifetime.
I went to San Francisco Sketch Fest maybe it was 2018, 20.
Yeah.
And
I know it was those 3 years. I know it was those 3 years because Boy, oh boy, those vessel submissions add
Donated
up.
some money. Let's
They
donate
would-
some
and
money.
I didn't really, so I don't know if you guys know this, but among other troubling things about stand-up, there is sexism. I don't know if you know about that.
No, that's not. Come on.
And
You
there's
heard
a
it here
couple
first,
different
folks.
ways-
Fake news.
there's several different ways sexism rears its ugly head. Sure, one of them is like women getting hit on and
Constantly.
putting and more than being hit on,
Yeah.
being assaulted and worse,
Yes.
or it being made clear that if they don't perform certain offstage acts, they will not get onstage acts. That is one way. And there's a multitude, but another way is just being old and not like I'm Heidi Klum and I'm 50, but like
Oh, interesting.
a non-model and you're whatever, 40, 50, whatever. And then you're just invisible. And so when I would go to these festivals, nobody knows me. And this is actually in my Lady ADHD show a little bit. And nobody knew me. I'll do the little line and let me tell you how popular it made me to be a newbie middle-aged lady comic showing up to comedy clubs with a flip chart. Like the other comics wouldn't talk to me because I was a weird hybrid between like a 1940s ventriloquist act and a friend of their mom's. And now we're friends, but like sometimes I didn't know I was a comic, or sometimes I'm like, this is and I'm, believe it or not, when I don't know anyone and I'm backstage with a bunch of comics, a lot of times I don't really say very much.
It's intimidating. I do the same thing. I
yeah.
shut down.
Before a show, I don't necessarily talk very much or say very much if I don't know people.
Yeah.
Or if you're social
Also, like-
distancing in a field.
And so I did those, and then eventually I got, my day job was going well. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. It's now or never. I was 48, and I'm like, I'm gonna see. I got a job. I looked for a day job that would pay enough money doing what I do day job wise. I looked in New York, couldn't find one that paid what I was gonna need. Because my most important piece of advice to younger comics is not about comedy, but just about
Life.
is don't be in debt. It's one thing to be broke. It's one thing to be broke, but you can buy and be places and be broke. But if you're in debt, now you need more than the pittance you can make to subsist. And I already had, mid to late 40-year-old American debt, unused law school law degree debt.
Yeah.
And so DC seemed close enough, and there was much bigger scene, and I had some, I have still a lot of friends here because I lived here for many years, DC, and now I work for a big network, and I just moved to Baltimore, and because it's closer to even New York, and because I don't have to go in the office really
Look at that.
for meetings or whatever, but not for
What year? When did you move to DC? The DC area?
it was early February, March 2018.
Okay, yeah, because you took off a
That's
year.
why I
before
say, like,
did.
I'm pretty sure Sketchfest.
'Cause I mean,
What year is it? 3, 4? Yeah, 2018.
yeah, because I mean, you can, and this is any scene in North Carolina. I feel like you can get enough to fake yourself into being, oh man, I'm good with this. I'm good with where
Yeah.
this is going. But then you're doing that same show, and you're like, oh no, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. There's a lot of shows, even now, and I put together this one person show that's part stand-up and part like mini TED talk about those stand-up pieces that is like, this is what I learned from that, and with ADHD, and this is what I took away. The stand-up piece, I had decided even before I moved to Baltimore, I really had decided this right before COVID. That was inconvenient. That I don't know how to say this without being like, it's going to sound shitty, and I don't mean it to, but it's like, I wasn't looking to be like the queen of Washington DC stand up. I was trying to do more stuff. So it was like everything is a mic. Like everything, anything I do here. That's why I love going to in Baltimore. It's so much easier to get around. I can go to a mic and do my set, and like at least people know me enough, because like DC Baltimore comics swap back and forth.
It's very close.
Yeah. And but it's easier to get places here. And like, I don't need to be like I like being asked to do shows. I like cool shows. I like cool shows that pay me, all those things. But like, if I'm just trying out new material or make something better, I don't need to do it on the coolest show in the bigger market. I'm happy to go in Baltimore and do it for 5 people. Maybe all of them are comics. And then I go, oh, okay, because I just have to hear the rhythm of it coming out of my mouth. And then I'm right back home 40 minutes later, like a weekend before last. Gary's like, are you back? How are you back? I'm like, I did best to go first. I came out. So, and then, take the train, or, it was so easy getting to the train station here too. I mean, and then just going to New York as much as I can for the stand-up thing. And then I'm looking for a place to do my 1-person show there without making it like a big goddamn deal. Like part of it in my head was like, well, if I tour all over with this show and then it'll get good enough to eventually go to New York. I'm like, no, I think along with the help of some other comics who are more experienced than me, it's like, no, just put it in a small place in New York and do it a couple times and see how the response is, and use that information to then maybe make it better and then do it again. So
keep going.
Bigger, or people know it exists. So
have you contacted the Asylum? Because the Asylum seems to be the new spot in New York.
I have inquired about them. They may be out of my price range.
Ah, interesting how that one goes, where we pay to play. Yeah
Well, but other places don't. I have some other
I know
but we'll see.
So,
and I'm coming to Nashville this month.
I have it on my calendar. I will be there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a group called Unscripted Improv that, among other things, does online improv classes and stuff for neurodiverse people, including an audio only one, so it's not as distracting. I'm like, I could see why that would be a benefit. So, and I'm going to do Dusty Slay show. So I'm trying to do both. I'm trying to focus. I'm going to let you ask me a question eventually. Trying to focus the touring more on the 1-person show. Okay. I used to try to get like every kind of like feature spot in a club and everywhere. And it's also monetarily challenging. I found a little bit of a way to go to these smaller improv theaters that like to do different shows in the late show. And, it's a door deal, and some of them guarantee me a little bit of money. And so and focus the stand-up on New York for now.
Okay.
For this,
that's not a bad divide on that, I don't think.
But like, if anyone's listening, I will take your amazing feature gig. But I used to be trying to be everywhere all the time with stand-up, and now I'm like, it just.
Well, and it's so much harder to book tours now because of, just strictly because of COVID.
And it also occurred to me that like, if I ever wanted anyone to pretend to even know that who I was, maybe it would be helpful to be in New York more, which I was doing right before COVID hit, but it's been easier now being in Baltimore. I know the idea is, for some people, would be saying, well, why don't you move to New York? Well, I have an excellent day job that I remotely most of the time. It pays very well, and it's way cheaper in Baltimore than in Brooklyn. And
I don't want to eat pizza every day. Yeah.
In Little Italy, yes.
Yeah.
Although that pizza is spectacular.
What?
Yes, you're both welcome anytime.
Yeah, thank you. To New York, the idea of like being in Baltimore, doing the road, and then going back to New York to focus on stand-up, but like still having that capabilities of going back and forth. I think that's something too that's changed with New York in the last 2 years. Is I don't think you necessarily have to be in New York, and most of the comics that I know that I thought were so great and that I always like was like, oh God, I hope I can have that career. I could be like them. I'm noticing that they're staying on the road pretty consistently now, and they're traveling to a lot of different markets they might not have before. So I think it's just the whole games. Well, I hope, I think, but I also hope that the game's kind of changing where it's like, yeah, New York is still the top of the top for comedy, but you can still do the road and make a career that way.
Well, I don't think that. I mean, I think even the people who base there are not necessarily making their money there. I mean,
No, I agree. Yeah.
That's been true
So
from
they're
back
getting other
in
opportunities.
my past
because of
life. I think that it's more like, for me, like, I never really expected if I was ever going to make it, and whatever that means, and I
Right.
not make it, whatever that means. But if I was ever going to make it, I never saw myself as the person getting the 5-minute set on the Tonight Show or similar.
Okay.
Just every one of my jokes is 7.5 minutes long.
yeah, I get that.
But that's not literally true. But you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't necessarily now that might have been a defense mechanism. That might have been something I told
you
myself.
telling yourself it.
I'm going up to New York now without flip charts, But I saw, that's the way I saw it, at least at the time. But whatever it is, it would be helpful if people who work in the business at least see you, like, have ever heard your name.
Yeah.
And I know people who've gotten amazing things, who was somebody out of DC, Frankie French, she's a friend of mine,
Mm-hmm.
would travel back and forth. I don't know, she maybe moved there full time. She was going to move to LA, and then COVID happened and other stuff. But, she mostly made it. Like, she was living in the DC area and commuting back and forth all the time. You just got to,
Right.
the
Yeah.
train station being a mile away now is really helpful. And taking 6 minutes because it's Baltimore, not DC, is really helpful. Being able to work remotely during the day is really helpful.
Yeah.
A law school roommate who lives mostly in Connecticut with her wife and is only there 1 day a week and lets me stay at her place for free alone all the time is really helpful.
Yeah.
I told her that if I stay there enough times this year, I might actually make law school pay for itself finally.
I know that was always on your checklist. Make law school mean something.
Yeah. Well, another thing with Baltimore and DC, which is so great about that scene specifically, is Baltimore and DC are people don't realize how close they actually are. And
Yeah.
I mean, you hit traffic, and I understand the traffic messes everything up, but it's not just Baltimore. You have Frederick, and you have all these small towns and these small
Yeah.
scenes where you can just like, all right, well, I have a night off in Baltimore, but I can go to Ellicott City and do, so it's something that I wish I had kind of not started there, but I wish I had been able to explore that scene more, because the only time I've ever been down there for more than a week was COVID, was 2020. So I just didn't get that chance. I was just sitting there like trying not to kill my
shows
mom.
that his parents' ranch.
Yes, let's keep this going.
the-
I need to know the
Yeah.
Blaire is my mom's favorite comic story. Let's get
So
into
let me tell you this. First of all, I'm probably almost certainly closer to his mom's age than to Will's age. Or I may have figured it out once when I had more information at my fingertips.
We'll just turn 40 the other
And
day.
I just, well, he's so mad at you now.
Oh, I'm furious.
I'm just saying, it's not a slam dunk that I'm closer to Will's age. Let's just put it that way. And I don't know why I'm her favorite, but the woman loves cats.
That was one. It was cats. So okay, so to put everyone that doesn't know in the right mindset, there is a global pandemic kicking up about roughly a little less than 2 years ago. And I don't know what you were working on at the time. I think you were
Blaire,
working on moving to
you
New
were
York, is what
doing
you said,
some,
right?
some
I was
online shows, right?
I was doing 8 to 10 sets a week and going to New York and
Yeah.
very quickly gaining weight and not sleeping and not knowing that I was burning out fast. Ha ha.
Perfect.
But seriously,
So-
that's what was happening.
So the country shuts down, and I get home, and I'm like, okay, if I don't start doing something, I'm just gonna wither away in my childhood bedroom and die. So I started doing Instagram live shows within like 24 hours, I think, of being home back in Hagerstown. And so I can't remember. I know it was a fundraiser. I don't remember what, because we did like a million fundraisers.
I think it was for the venue where you used to have a show in New York.
So that was the Silverlight Tavern. So I used to run a show at Silverlight Tavern. They get crushed. It's a pretty new venue. It's a new restaurant. So we do this thing, and I have you, and I had Lucas O'Neill, and we had a pretty fun time. But Blaire gets on, and it's literally my family sitting behind me, my friend Mike, because we didn't really know about social distancing quite yet. We're like, oh, there's only 6 people allowed in the room.
Hagerstown, Maryland is not DC. Hagerstown, Maryland is not Bethesda, Maryland. Hagerstown, Maryland is starting to get into the, dare I say it, slightly rednecky part of Maryland.
Do y'all have a Chick-fil-A?
Not there yet, but
Yes.
it's
You have a
starting
Chick-fil-A?
to, it's on the
Yeah.
way.
It's the
What
last,
about a Buffalo
like,
Wild Wings?
of course. What?
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
just
not-
checking.
we're not
these are
animals.
landmarks you gotta
So-
have.
Hagerstown's the last city before you hit Western Maryland, which is all farmland. And we're also like smashed in between the border of Pennsylvania, border of West Virginia, and I think a little teensy bit of Virginia.
Do you have a
Yeah.
Target?
I'm not even gonna answer. I'm not even gonna dignify
That's a
you
big
with
question,
an
man.
answer.
My hometown,
Serious.
Southern Pines, still doesn't have a Target.
I can't. I refuse to believe that you guys don't have a Target.
Yeah,
by
but
the
we
way.
don't have a Target.
we're up north, so it's not the same.
Okay. All right.
That's also true. Okay.
Is your Walmart a supercenter?
Yes. Actually, at some point, our Walmart was the most populated Walmart not the biggest, but the most populated Walmart in the country.
Populated?
So
So like most
Are you
most
using
people
the
went
right
in
word
there.
again? You
I
mean
think, like,
popular?
They had the most people that went in
the
and
most
out.
people went in and out.
The most people
For the
used that
24-hour
Walmart.
This is okay. This is
Foot
I can't have
traffic?
you in this rendition of Will having a
I'm
mental
bored.
breakdown. Okay, so anyway, so the whole thing is we're doing this Instagram live show. Blaire just brings it, just goes absolutely ballistic. And I'm pretty sure you brought the camera to your chest and you were yelling at my dad about your chest for a minute.
I mean, it was part of the joke. It's
Sure.
just thing.
Sure.
Yes. Yes. But for some reason, 99 times like out of 100, when someone hits on my dad or makes a suggestion towards my dad, especially comics, my mom's like, I'm not into this comic. But my mom was like,
I wasn't hitting on him. That joke
yeah.
is that joke is about science. That joke
It is about science. It is a science
Okay.
question.
My
William.
dad's a science
Engineering.
man. He's not an engineer. I can't go that far. But anyway, Blaire just brings it. And so I think after that, you and I were on like a lot of like
Mhm.
IG shows, and I think I came on yours. You had one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we were just doing.
Immediately was fine. So a lot of people hate Zoom comedy or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean,
It's great,
yeah.
and I get it. And it's not that I like it more than live comedy.
Sure.
But
You appreciated it for what it was worth.
Some people don't like to do jokes for only 3 people.
Yep. Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with me exactly, but that doesn't bother me. Like when
Yeah.
I'm doing like a Zoom show or whatever, like just once I get going, I'm in it. I'm in the joke. So when I am telling that joke about running, and I'm like, it's like having 2 recently dead mammals strapped to your chest all times. That is based on a real race. It's not all, it's a colorful version of some true event and some interesting hyperbole. And I am in that joke. Blaire, how do you I've had people say, Blaire, how do you bring that energy every time? I'm in the thing. I'm in it.
Yeah.
In it. If you think I'm angry in the joke, I'm sort of angry again. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty sure it's bad for me.
Oh yeah.
Pretty sure it's like weird PTSD, like some weird PTSD version. So telling a story to my husband, you would think there were 100 people in the room. Like I am in it. I'm in whatever I'm telling. If I'm telling you a story, I'm reliving it in my head and I am in it. And so
You re-enter the world.
yeah.
You re-enter the
And then
scenario,
after it's
situation.
over, I'm like, oh. But
No, I'm just now I'm just in a basement in some tavern in DC.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So this is what she did. That's just, I mean, just brings it for this thing. We started doing a bunch of online shows, and then eventually, things kind of opened up to a point where we were like, if we were all outside
And it got warm.
and it got warm,
Especially
we
in
could
2020. That was very important.
And it was 2020, not a vaccine in sight. And for some people, that didn't matter. It still doesn't matter. But we're outside. And so I decided to put together, it was the 4-year anniversary of the show I used to run back in New York. And I thought, you know what? It's always been something different. Let's do it outside in my parents' front yard. And
Will's parents' front yard.
it's not just,
a front yard. They live, I mean, I guess it's not technically a farm, but I am from the New Jersey suburbs of New York. So to me, it looks like a farm, but there's no like farm animals, but there's like there's a barn that's like reclaimed wood or something, or maybe it used to be like it looks farmy to me.
Didn't you chase a cat for like
driveway that's gravelly and
Oh no.
other houses you can see? It's not like that kind of farm. It's more like farm-like.
Just a lot
there's
of land.
Like
It's a big house.
Yeah, the land is
There's a
rented out
pool.
to there. Okay, there's a pool,
Well, you
but
have a
the
pool?
pool wasn't there
You
when I
didn't
was
tell me
growing
you
up.
had
That
a
was a luxury for my siblings, not for me.
Well,
But the
Woe
yes,
is
the
you.
to paint the picture, the farmland. There is farmland. It's rented out to a Mennonite farmer, and he does a corn and soy and winter wheat rotation. But that's all been cleared out because it was cleared for the late summer or whatever it was. But we're literally on 2 planks of 2 old pallets that I screwed together, like I jerry rigged some light, and we filmed it like on Facebook Live or Facebook, whatever they were calling
something.
it, and just all of us yelling out. The one thing I didn't plan on is that it gets dark. So once it did get dark, you're just yelling into the abyss and praying laughs come back and hit you.
Not
And it was
unlike
just-
Zoom.
Yeah, but Blaire crushed it. Blaire crushed it again, and I was told by my parents, "Why didn't you have her headline?" And I was like,
Why didn't you have her headline?
Sexism, ageism,
Sexism. It was sexism.
ageism,
100%. 100%. It was sexism and ageism. No, I
and
forget
ageism.
why it was. I think it was because Harrison was traveling further. I think that's why it was.
Whatever. But it was
Cover
fun.
the base.
So Will's mom followed me on Facebook, I think, then.
Yes.
And she likes cats. And I had a cat bit. And then occasionally we would talk about cats. And then occasionally something
Oh yeah.
she would post something about Will, and I would comment, and she and I would laugh, and Will be in the whole.
You would comment. You would just bully me.
And so,
As she should.
and she was just
As she
enjoying.
should.
And so
She's your aunt now,
we-
Will. She can bully if she wants to.
And so, right. And so then, Will, you had the next summer or something like that. You had the brewery show. And you
Yeah.
brewery show. And sometime after that, when I started the Lady ADHD, like was in like I would do rehearsals in my back deck outside. At some point, your mother sent me the book, I Could Pee on This, by Francesco Marsuliano, who, among other things, is the cartoonist for Sally Forth. And it's a very little book. Someone had given me a copy of that when I was moving to DC from Wilmington. And it's like pictures of cats with like these haiku, and it's really funny. It's timeless.
Okay.
And my husband and I had always laughed at this book. It was really, really funny. And the author was the guest on our 200th episode of My Fantasy Wife, which we brought back to life during quarantine because we were bored. And it was
We had some good time.
bracket about the best cartoon cat of all time because he's a cartoonist, he likes cats, boom. And so it was fascinating. It was like 2 hours long. And I had always said to that guy, because we kind of, not unlike you and I, we kind of became friends like in quarantine.
Yeah.
And then, so we said, oh, when I come up to New York in the after times for comedy, we'll say hello. Well, this
Wow.
weekend, I had lunch with him in New York.
Hey,
Talked about how, my friends, I was talking about his book and saying how I still get, I've been given the book more than once. In fact, during quarantine, my comedian friend's mom sent me a copy of that book.
you didn't name drop me?
It was like your birthday and she sent me a gift.
That's what you went
Yeah,
with, Will?
that's
Not this
that's the.
lovely story, but the fact that she didn't name drop you.
I'm a little upset. She could have been following Bev. I mean, Bev needs the followers, really.
Oh, and she came to my show, the worst version
She
of the
did.
show. Sorry, because the air conditioning out was August, and she came
No.
to DC Comedy Loft. She brought a friend. They paid money, I think.
She didn't
I don't know.
she didn't just bring a friend. She brought a former Fox News pundit who was part of that
Ooh.
whole mass exodus. Bill
Well, I
O'Reilly.
guess I didn't impress anyone. That it was not a good situation. It was like 100 degrees a day in the air.
You lost me. Yeah, you lost me at AC was out.
No,
Yeah, I heard it was hot. I did hear it was hot.
It
But
was
she
awful.
enjoyed it. She did
I
enjoy
would
it.
have passed out.
She'd like it more now. I cut some stuff. I think she'd like it more now when I come back with it.
Well, I'm excited
Yeah.
to see this.
When you do the
She'll
Maryland
come again.
Yeah, when you do the Maryland Theater in Hagerstown before I do, my mom will
Right.
be there.
Oh, what's that? Maryland.
You do know that's her
Theater.
one goal the rest of this year now, right?
Yeah, she's just gonna ruin it.
I'm booking the fuck out of that theater.
And you won't even book me to
I
open
don't
for you.
care
You'll
if
book.
I have to pay, take out like a 401k.
She's gonna bring me
loan.
with her to open up.
Yeah.
for you.
Right. Oh yeah, you're not opening for me.
Yeah. Pride of Hagerstown? No. Drew Harrison, everybody.
I'm sorry. I feel like this. Well, anyway, that's how I started doing comedy. That's how I feel like boring.
The little chariot, little bow on the whole thing. No, you took us down some very
Is
fun
that what
wormholes.
you do with most people, right? You ask
Yeah,
them
that's perfect.
their comedy career.
And see where it went. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
And now I'm coming to Nashville.
Yep.
Notice how Will didn't say he was coming to the show. I'm coming to Nashville. I'm also
When is
doing the Slay show the night before my Lady ADHD show.
What are those dates? So
Blair shows
March
Thursday,
23rd
March
and 24th.
24th at Third Coast
March
Comedy.
20. Let me double check that on the calendar. Yes, March 23rd. I'm on the Dusty Slay's Grand Old Comedy Show at Zany's. And then Thursday, March 24th, I'm at Third Coast Comedy with my one-person show, Lady ADHD.
Yeah.
It's fun to say. And I promise you, it's like stand-up meets like 80% stand-up, but my weird stand-up with flip charts. And then like 25% like TED Talkish, but in a fun way.
I'm excited about it. I'm excited.
And then there's something else. And then I'm going to be on Dork Forest now. I'm so excited.
That is awesome. That's fantastic.
So that'll come out too.
Nice.
There
Do
you
you
go.
have anything else?
That's not,
coming
I
up?
mean, I have no real credits, so I'm using that.
where
That's
where can
incredible.
people find you?
My website is adhdcomedy.com, which has links to everything. There's a section for the one-person show. There's a section for comedy. There's video on both. But social, I'm not on Twitter.
Good call.
I have
Keep your
anger,
sanity.
problem. And I was never, whenever I would go on, it was never for fun or to be funny. I was just
Fun seeking out drama.
And then Facebook, I'm technically barely on Facebook only because
I'm trying so hard to not be on
I
Facebook.
need an ad
Yeah.
to be on for Lady ADHD to go out. I have to be on there. So
The ads aren't
Right, you're
working.
just there to bully me.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram at Postman Comedy.
Nice.
So
Well, that's my favorite.
Postman Comedy Instagram, ADHD Comedy. I think if you do postmancomedy.com, the website still comes up.
Nice.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy
Thanks,
to have you as a
guys.
guest on the show.
Was
Yeah,
I
nice
so
catching
boring?
up with you.
Did I not let you ask enough questions? Were there any questions? Did
You
I-
answered the question before we
Okay.
had to even ask it.
We would think the
Did I-
question and then you started answering it before we'd even ask the question.
I'm a storyteller, Will.
Yeah, I know.
Spin those
Did
dreams.
I leave no mystery? I'm sorry. I wish I had something interesting to tell me.
The only mystery you
Very
left is
interesting.
that car ride from hell in South Carolina that we will get to at a later
No,
date.
that and who did I bail out of airport jail?
I yeah.
You
He's
did,
kinda
yeah.
famous.
There's a couple cliffhangers you threw in there.
I like
Oh yeah.
Oh, also,
No,
I have a
you
question before we go.
Please.
So wait, what does rendition mean?
Well, if you do a rendition, like you do an interpretation or a version of it, so you could have made it work, but you weren't confident. So I knew you didn't really know. You were
didn't
trying
sell it.
your next edition of the podcast, but you said rendition, and that's not doesn't really fit because rendition
Okay.
like our next interpretation. So like if you had
He's already
like
checked out.
Macbeth, but like
hold on.
your
I'm gonna-
rendition
I'm gonna-
of Macbeth.
He's
I'm gonna-
not
I'm
there.
gonna hang my-
This
He's
isn't
done.
a
myself with
standing.
my
This
hanging
isn't
light.
an already happened thing. So
Yeah.
the thing of rendition of taking some. Well, you know.
Blaire, thank you so much. We appreciate
Will
you.
has just left.
Before we get
Was that
hit with,
you?
before we get our videos taken down, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, guys. Love you.
Bye, Blaire.
My funny friends, my funny friends, my funny, funky, funny friends now. My funny friends, my funny friends, my funny,